Hello! We have two stories today where we return to the modern day office, but maybe not so modern with a software whiz who's a whole lot less about the techno beats and a lot more about the rhythm and blues. So when an entitled boss comes along and does the manglement thing they always seem to do, it's like a bad riff that just won't end. Until one day when the hero decides enough is enough, lets his love of music fuel some sweet revenge with a bit of Little Wing about to take flight. Story 1. Quite a few years ago now, in the late 1990s and very early on in my career, I used to work for a company that helped customers of certain retail stores manage their finances. My role was as a sort of compliance officer, ensuring that the staff who dealt with customers were following the rules. If they messed it up, it was a big problem and could potentially impact the customer's credit score, result in them defaulting on payments, and even court. I took my job pretty seriously. The company was not particularly well run from a management perspective. They'd made a lot of money very quickly. They had grown from a handful of employees in a garage to a 4-story office building in the CBD within the space of a year and a half. There wasn't a great deal in the way of policy or process framework, so I had to develop a lot of the tools to do my job myself. This involved some programming, a basic system to track what I was doing, linked to the extensive rule set, and automate some of the more tedious reporting. It would also track how long I was spending on each task so that I could see about which elements I could streamline. Now, I was quite proud of this system and called it Hendrix, as I am a massive Jimi Hendrix fan. It used to play about 5 seconds of the instrumental version of Little Wing when it started up. As I had my own little room, cupboard, this never used to annoy anyone. I can geek out about that type of stuff. At this point, before corporate IT became rather more rigid, I used to write a lot of my own tools. I was the only person who was using Hendrix, and it was a tool just for me. My manager, the archetypal middle manager, decided that because it allowed you to quickly reference which rules applied to which situation, it should be rolled out to all staff. Now, I had previously considered this, but I argued that I couldn't guarantee that it would be fit for task, because I designed it for my own use. And I'd need to make some changes first. But he rolled it out anyway without me even getting a chance to tweak it. He got a Team Player of the Week award for introducing a tool to make life easier for frontline staff. In his acceptance speech, this was a big rah-rah thing each week for the company, he thanked his manager. I didn't even get a mention. Then, 2 weeks later, he realized that I'd been recording how long I had been working on certain tasks within the program. Now, I'd realized fairly quickly that this part of the program was a little too detailed, and I didn't really care too much about every single task within each incident. So I just used it to record how long I spent on the entire incident, rather than each part of the incident. My manager invited me to a meeting about Hendrix. No details given, and I attended thinking it was going to be a list of requested features, only to find out that the head of HR was there and I was being given a written warning for falsifying timekeeping. Because each customer interaction was a certain length, my manager had decided that this was what I should be recording, and not how long I was spending listening to, analyzing, checking, and reporting on the interaction. Remember, this is a tool that I had designed for my own use, and it was not being used to calculate how much I was being paid, or whether I was doing enough work during the day or not. There was nothing in place for that at all. I had not made the records public. He'd found them in a file on the server that only he and I had access to. Nobody else was supposed to even have this tool. I argued this and was told that it wasn't up to me, and I was getting a warning regardless. It got really quite heated and unpleasant, though I got the impression that the head of HR was a little embarrassed about the whole thing. They said, however, that if I wanted to consult a lawyer, I was quite within my rights to do so. It was at this point that I was rather smugly able to state that I could get 2 lawyers there within the hour, as both my parents were practicing and my mother was, in point of fact, an employment lawyer. I realize that this is a bit of a deus ex machina, but it only has partial bearing on the story. Suddenly, there was a completely different attitude from my manager. There was an attempt to roll back the issue and turn it into a suggestion that perhaps I should be a bit more careful with my timekeeping in future. But I was pretty angry at this point. I pointed out that my software had been rolled out to all staff against my wishes. I was told that this wasn't up to me, as it was company intellectual property, until I advised them that I'd written it, in my own time, at home, on my own computer. It was plugging into the official government rule set and not the corporate intranet one. I had not confirmed it fit for general release at all. I had received special dispensation from IT to install it on a single work computer, mine, and that I would require them to pay a license fee for anything beyond this. To be fair, this would have been tied up in court for a long time, and I've got no idea whether I'd have been successful, so in the end I relented. If they wanted to use Hendrix, well, I guess they could. I just made sure that Little Wing would play for 1 second longer on startup for every week the software was in use. Then I quit the following Monday and was working for another company by the Monday after that. 3 or 4 months later, I got a phone call from my former manager asking to come fix the problems with my software. He hung up when I quoted him my consultant fees. I don't know why IT weren't able to figure it out. It was just a setting in a text file, not at all hard to find. A friend who remained in the company tells me they continued to use Hendrix for a whole year. The mornings in the call center were apparently horrifying, with Little Wing playing for around a minute every time someone started a new shift. Sometimes it would play on 20 computers at once, few seconds apart on tiny PC speakers that they were unable, due to IT, to mute. In the comments, Cabbers78 said, "The best kind of revenge is served not only cold but also with a side of Little Wing." Kevin in sales said, 2 years later, someone finds the .txt file. They know they can delete the line of code and everything will be fine with no more Jimmy songs every shift. Or they can continue the legacy by having the song repeat once the seconds go longer than just the one song. Because they were wronged and not given credit by the same boss, they will go with option 2. Amazing! And such a great song. I'd be down for listening to that every day. I want to know how long this manager lasted. I can't believe he had the nerve to call OP and ask him to fix the software. What a dolt! But OP definitely got the last laugh. Life lessons. Never mess with IT people. All it takes is a few swift keystrokes to make or break you. Our second story features another satisfying tale of people sticking it to the man. Or rather, unsticking the mess created by a management that stick their heads in the ground. One man takes a leave from work and returns to find a new system that just wasn't cutting it. Literally. Which is a bit of a problem in a print shop where you primarily, print and then cut. Story 2. I currently work in a print hub and mentioned in a previous post that malicious compliance kind of just comes with the job. I had been on medical leave for quite some time. During that time, a number of systems and programs we use changed. In particular, our online systems for business cards and similar products had changed. The way the system was before my leave was that when a customer uploaded the file, the system would slightly stretch the file to include a bleed. If a file was submitted with a bleed, nothing would be done. For those not in the know, a bleed on a print file is an excess of the image in the design that is meant to be cut off. Most business cards have colored blocking for style, and this ensures that there is no ugly, uneven white edge on the finished product. Essentially, it allows the customer to get what they envision. Astute readers would realize our old system could cause issues, however, especially when writing or images are close to borders. Information could be cut off due to being over the bleed line after the image was stretched. As such, we as workers knew that a change was going to happen. This change happened during my medical leave, as the online system was updated to allow more customizations. When customers uploaded files, they were presented with a digital canvas where they could change their text and images on their file. 2 boxes were presented on this canvas, one box showing the finished size of the product, and one showing the bleed we needed to ensure a proper cut. The problem is the system no longer automatically stretched the provided file to the finished size, and certainly not to the bleed size. The new system allows customers to properly fit themselves, but rarely do they size it to bleed. As such, when we print and cut the finished product, there is often this ugly white band on 2 of the sides. As the cutting system is all automated and without those bleeds, there were always problems. Additionally, our large guillotine cutter is constantly in use for orders that need it, and to reprogram it and interrupt orders to trim a millimeter off every order was unreasonable. My manager, who will be named D, brought this to the attention of the system admins and IT, but was pretty much dismissed. He was told to push those orders that did not have bleed into problem status, and they would take a look at the problem. Also, to send a list of problem orders still not handled at the end of each week. When I returned to work 3 months ago, I was given a rundown of everything that was new, including this new problem. I followed this malicious compliance currently in progress, none the wiser to what Dee was doing, such as pushing the orders without bleed into problem status, which was quite a fair amount to be honest. I didn't really think much about it, however. Towards the beginning of this month, Dee had asked me to scan in February's problem orders, easily 500 orders, ensure each problem was its own separate file, then file them in a filing cabinet. I have read and listened to horror stories about office scanning, but I don't really have an issue where I am, as we have a high-capacity automated scanner. So this was no issue. I did as I was told. In the folder, they told me to put it on the shared computer and then went to file it. There were over thousands of problem orders stuck in limbo due to this bleed issue in this filing cabinet. Not only did this likely make us look bad to head office, but the customers were probably raging. When I asked Dee what was going on with this issue, he explained everything and informed me of his plan. It turned out IT intended to do nothing about this bleed problem. They wanted us as production to fix the problem, which meant designing. The design team gets paid a lot more than we in production, though, and as we weren't being paid that wage, Dee was having none of it. He was told each week to send in all orders that haven't been fixed as of yet, so he was. Dee and the supervisor created a program that would submit each problem order as a ticket to IT, one at a time, at the end of the week. Previously, they had sent everything in as one ticket. This is why they had me scan each problem order as its own file, rather than just a single PDF with everything on it. This program ran on Friday, late afternoon, just before IT's weekend started. Dee knew IT needed to acknowledge all problem tickets before they left the office. Every 15 seconds, a new problem ticket popped up and they needed to acknowledge it, all 500 files before they left. I don't know exactly how well it worked, but it certainly worked. 2 hours and 5 minutes after hours at least, depending on how fast their PCs are. I did the math, and that's only the stuff that I scanned myself. From my understanding, Dee and supervisor had also decompiled the files they had already submitted and resubmitted them as well. After the first week, the regional manager, who is a really cool guy, we'll call him Ray, stopped by to check in and asked why IT was cursing Dee's name, and Dee explained it. Ray said, in no uncertain terms, "If they haven't done anything about the jobs by the end of the week, you should follow up." Wink. At the end of last week, Dee set up the program to ask for updates on each of the problem jobs, as well as the program to submit new problem jobs from last week, and set it to run. When we came in this Monday, we got an update from IT that the system has been adjusted. Going forward, customers should not be able to submit jobs anymore that do not have borders meeting the bleed line. We still have some issues as reorders can override this fix, but it's been a lot better now, and this week has been extremely productive. Dee, meanwhile, came into his email having over 20 unread messages and over 500 junk mail as the spam filter kicked in. Each message was the program's response asking for an update, with the first few responses from IT being, "We are still looking into it," and the later responses simply being the letter A. There is still the matter of the order still stuck in limbo, so there may be an update, but the main compliance has been settled. Edit 1. The reason why this problem was not fixed before was all the other locations were doing workarounds to fix the problems themselves. We were the only location making a stink about the issue as the workaround was outside the scope of our paycheck, so it was considered low priority. Still does not excuse them, but they changed their tune in the end. In the comments, Coder Joe 1 joked, "So those white edges on my cards mean I'm on the bleeding edge of my field?" Someone else asked, "Orders still stuck in limbo? Bizarre tale of a company who cares not if they can keep customers?" OP replied, "They do care, but only about the big ticket jobs. These business cards are like $20 to $30, really just an estimate. Each day, it's not uncommon for me to be running 2 or 3 orders with values more than what I make in a month." Oh goodness, I know all too well that the markups for printing are nuts. It is crazy expensive to get anything professionally printed. But alas, this is a classic story of one department passing the buck and pushing a mess to another team for cleanup. Turns out they picked the wrong team since this supervisor is on the ball. You want me to fix a problem at a lower wage rate? Nope, not today. I see your one problem and I will raise you 500 tickets. Tee-hee. This story just gives me the warm tinglies. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.